Here we go.
Are we live? We got the video. We got audio.
Mm-hmm. Everything's working.
All right.
My headphones too loud.
So right before you guys came on, John said this dialogue is old coots with beards or something. So it's like we look like we know something even if we don't, right? That's
right.
the thing. So welcome, Shabbat Shalom. I've pulled up, Dave showed me how to do this. I've got the chat pulled up both for YouTube and Facebook. And so if I didn't do a good job monitoring when I was just looking at Facebook, it'd probably be twice as bad today. But we wanted to come back and give you a chance on the dialogue to discuss this subject. We'll discuss it, but we'll also take your comments. And I realize that someone could listen to what I presented this morning and offer up all sorts of but.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you.
But I did want to kind of present that this is a more difficult thing to talk about, really.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it is. And
It is.
I'm going to take a lot of hammering over this probably. Not in here, I mean among friends, but there are people who don't espouse this view. But I want you to know before we get into it that I meant to present what I did as a way to make us better. Now, people, in other words, I want us to think about what we think about and not just accept this idea that there's nothing I can do. These thoughts are just running through my head. So anyway, so again, today's class was called Thoughts, Torah from the Inside. Now this actually was part of something that I originally penciled in my notebook called the hardest commandments. What's really tough? Like for me, it's not tough to not murder. That's not a sin that easily besets me.
Might be for some people.
But for others, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but this one gets a little bit more to the heart of the matter.
Gets everybody.
It does. It really does.
I don't care how good you think you are. You got a dog in that fight.
That's right. So we're going to, the three of us, discuss the idea that I presented this morning as best we can stay on topic. It might be kind of tough. On this one, though, it might not be that tough to stick with the topic. No. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, Dave, you see, now that you listen to us talk on the break, you can be, well.
We forgot everything we discussed, Dave, just like you said.
As I had said after you got finished, I don't disagree with anything you said. I just personally felt that there were some things that could be more expanded on, but you're absolutely right. You spoke from the Bible, and that's the right thing to do. And indirectly, as we did talk a little bit about it on the break, everybody has a responsibility. You can't just say, well, I got these thoughts. God, make them go away. It doesn't work like that. You have to take ownership. You were given that life. You were given that brain. You were given the ability to make your own decisions. Like God told Abraham, walk for yourself.
Yeah.
He's not going to do it for you. He'll give you moral support. He gave you guidance. We have a book detailing all the guidance you could possibly ever need.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to teach yourself to deal with thoughts that come up that scripturally are not right.
Is there a way, do you think there's a way to do that? Or have I presented, and then I'll shut up, have I presented an unachievable, unrealistic goal then to kind of capture your thoughts is the way I would put it?
We can probably hold on to that question. And maybe this helps with that area. For the longest time, I wondered what these thoughts meant, and guard your thoughts. I've read that, so on and so forth. But in the Torah, it talks about Enoch, Noah, Abraham. All those guys were perfect in their day.
Yeah.
And we've had discussions in the past about what caused them to be set apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it hit me, weeks ago when you started having this series about it's really our thoughts. And I'm thinking, those guys, God knows your thoughts, so that's how they were righteous, Maybe not so
You
much.
think
in
they were
man's
right
eyes.
on the inside?
I think they were right on the inside. I think that's what got them to where the Torah talks about them being righteous and so forth. They were righteous with their thoughts. Their thoughts were good. So, can it be achieved? Yes, it can. The Bible says it can. The Torah.
What about a regular guy like me, though, Dave? Just a regular guy.
I don't think there's any. Do they have some kind of extraordinary ability to control their brain, their mind, their thoughts? No, I don't.
It takes effort. It takes a little bit of, as a thought comes in. Okay, you had a thought. All right.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. It's you never gave anything attention before. Now you're reading this book and it says, look, this is right and this is wrong. Mm-hmm. This is the way you should approach stuff, and this is not the way you should approach stuff. And, it's not, everything's not a straight line. There are stuff that's right and wrong, and then there's stuff that you need to be aware of and be cautious about. So to take Ross's example, when you see a pretty lady walk through a room, you can deal with that without having to covet or let it go further. And part of that, though, is if you get I think one of the things that he was talking about in there is you have these thoughts, you have these ideas. If you don't deal with them, they're going to, I'm going to throw in $50 words out there, they're going to manifest themselves.
Yeah.
You will eventually, somehow.
Saying the more you think about something, the more likely you are to do it.
And a situation will present itself to where you've been thinking about this, whatever it is.
You let it fester.
But doesn't that go both ways?
I don't know about fester, but you just let it go. You say, oh, that's okay.
But I mean,
I'm not taking action on it, but something will happen at the right moment, the right time, and based upon how you trained yourself, your response is going to be reflected by the way you trained yourself.
Mm.
But that goes both ways, good thoughts and bad thoughts. Good thoughts, if you dwell on them long enough, like we have a good idea here to do some kind of change in our broadcast, or you have a good idea in your teaching style or something like that. If you think about it long enough, it's liable to come about.
That's right.
Whereas if you don't think about it, it's not. It's not going to happen.
Or that won't work and you just blow it off.
Thoughts are either good or bad.
Yeah.
Now, you got to, so you can't say, you can't go through life just not having a thought. That's sitting on a mountain somewhere.
Right.
Just thinking about God all the time. What good is that?
Yeah.
Really?
And God doesn't want you to do
in other
that
words,
either.
you have to interact with the world.
You to live.
Miriam asked the question, how can we know or differentiate which thought comes from Jehovah or which is yours or from which is a bad thought, an evil thought? All right, and then, of course, Laura replies, if it agrees with Torah and other writings, it is my go-to guide. So what do you guys think? In other words, if you have a thought, I would agree with Laura's assessment that we've been given these, like you said, these instructions.
But I understand what she's saying here, and I totally agree, as you do. But agreeing with Torah, the Torah has a lot of stuff in it. There's good, bad, and ugly in there.
Yeah,
So, I understand what she's saying here. The good part of it, the way we should live our lives. But that could lead into the oral argument. How do you not work on Sabbath?
Well, there's a lot of things there. But I mean, that's he gave us this brain, this filter to work with.
Right.
He wasn't going to say, well, I'm giving this to you, and don't worry about it. I'm going to do it all for you. So you got to do it.
So we agree. We do have to think.
Yes,
correct?
We have to think.
We do have to think. Thinking is not bad.
Just like the song. You got to think.
We're at here with this, So you got to learn how to have good thoughts, or you got to learn how to filter the bad thoughts. What Laura
deal
was
with
saying.
them.
You got to have a standard there somehow to figure that out.
You ever say? Let me think about that.
Right.
If somebody goes, hey, would you, John, would you help me? By the way, I need help Monday.
9 times out of 10, that means no, I can't.
I do need help Monday.
I got to figure out a way out of it.
Chabad said they've got a dishwasher they want to give away, and we've got to pick it up Monday. One of you boys with a truck might can help me. So to give to somebody, anybody that locally, if you're listening and you need a dishwasher, They just they said that we could have it.
Well, we can talk about it later.
All right,
Where
but
we're gonna
anyway,
put it.
but what if I said, guys?
We're going to put it. That's
What if I said, guys? I want y'all to think about that. Both of y'all
Right.
think about that, and if you've got time,
Right.
does that cause you? If someone tells you, or if you tell yourself, "I'm going to think about that," do you then focus on that mentally?
Yeah. Well, you give it some
So-
thought. You
so
say you're
my
going to think
question
about it.
It
is
can
getting-
be true. It can
so
be true.
my
But a
que-
lot of times it's just a way to put stuff off. I mean,
Or
I'll
blow
think about it
somebody
often.
off.
Yeah.
I'm thinking no, but
Yeah, I'll
gotta
think about
figure
how
out-
to tell you.
I got to figure out how to tell you without, you know.
But think we'll use an example where it is true. So here's what I mean.
Okay.
Can we, as mere humans, say, "I'm going to think about things that are holy and pure and good"? You know, that's what I'm going to try to think about. Does that in any way help us if we get our thoughts right? I guess is my question. Can that then lead us to better behavior?
If we
More
get
in
our
line with
thoughts
God.
right.
Okay.
And I think some of that too, just from my own background, has to do with training. Now you ain't got a drill sergeant with you,
Right.
but you know you're setting out to do certain objectives. How do you know that you're going to pass or fail without a test? And I'm not saying take that to extremes, but you can, as life goes on. Like for instance, you know, negative thought, bad thought. I don't want to use the word negative, but bad thoughts about other humans
Right.
that are unjustified is not a good thought. It may not be a sin unless you let it fester and go beyond that. It's not certainly nice. It's not certainly right. But you have to be able, as situations confront you, you have to be able to, I guess, step back in your mind and go, because the first thing you want to do is get out of my way or four-letter words or whatever.
I'm talking about driving.
Like move.
Or something, and just say, step back and go, wait a minute. That's not the way I should be thinking.
Like if you're standing in a line at the
You
movies and
have
it's
to.
too long and it's too
Yeah.
slow and your thoughts are,
Or-
man, I don't have time for this. But the truth is, patience is a virtue. You know.
Yeah, my
you can,
question
you know,
is,
you can do
could
stuff
to
like
you're
that.
getting to what if we really could get to the place where, like, if somebody cuts me off in traffic and my natural, the way I do it now is to cuss them out or whatever,
Yeah.
even if they can't hear me.
That's right.
If that's what I'm asking is something a little bit more than that. Can we get to the place where we don't react that way? That our thinking is, wow,
so.
that person must be in a hurry. I hope nothing's wrong. I hope her child's not going to the hospital. Oh my dear Lord, please.
I agree.
You see what I'm
but
saying?
I think that training leads you there.
Okay, training.
Training, and then you have to have those thoughts.
You
can't
use
just-
that as a guidance, and you have to train yourself.
I think in that situation, you have to go beyond your thoughts. Does that make sense at all? In other words, you have these initial thoughts. Somebody cuts you off, you have this initial thought, but you have to go beyond that and think
to that.
why maybe they. It happened to me this morning. Somebody at the worst place, Thompson Creek.
Oh yeah.
A little cut in right there. A guy cut. I mean, he just slammed, come out in traffic. Me and another person had to put the brakes on. You know, I was mad.
Yeah.
I was like, this fool almost got himself killed.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't gonna hit him, but then when I did pass him, because I did, it was an old man and an older lady, and looked like she was unconscious in the car. I'm going, my God, they're going to the hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were or not.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
went on, and kept going. You know,
Very well
Good
could have been.
example.
it's a good
You,
example.
you don't know what the other situation is.
Don't. You know? So you have to go beyond your thoughts sometimes. You have to have these thoughts are going to happen. You have to go beyond that thought.
It's a whole lot easier, believe me. It's a whole lot easier for us to just say, look, you can think about what you want, just don't do it. And that's a cop-out, I think. Let me bring up Leslie's
Yeah,
comment.
it is.
Leslie said, I was surprised you didn't mention Cain in Genesis 4.
You're talking about me because I'm on the one.
Yeah, because Dave, you want to bring Dave?
No, go ahead.
Dave always brings this up, and it's good. You know, you learn a lot in those first few chapters of Genesis, and God tells Cain that sin, if you do right, it'll go right. If you do well, it'll go well. If you don't, sin crouches at the door. But you
I
can.
think if you go back a verse on that, it's the thoughts God went to the thoughts of Cain? I don't know. You'd have to check.
But he says ultimately, he said, you can rule over it. You can rule over it.
Why are your thoughts always bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea. What if you could rule over sin? Like here's what, I grew up in the Baptist church, right? And so, and I'm very happy that I did. I learned a lot of valuable things. But there was this idea that people would say, like on testimony night. We used to have testimony night.
Beat that testimony.
Yeah, and it is beat that testimony. It's kind of like, boy, you wouldn't believe this. I used to rob stores and beat people and drink hard whiskey, only the hardest whiskey, and I did this and I smoked dope and and people just, and it was almost like you were trying to shock everybody else, and then you'd say, but God saved me from all that. But what if you could actually get to the place, and I'm talking about biblically defined sin, where, like, I don't think, it just never crosses my mind. Boy, I tell you what, I wish I could have a pork loin roast or something. That never crosses my mind. Why doesn't it? Because long ago, I discerned that God said that's not good.
But when you first made that decision,
was
it a little tough?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, making that but you trained yourself based upon the guidance provided to eventually that thought no longer came into being.
Yeah. What about the faithful Orthodox Jewish guy raised in Israel, so on and so forth? Never has tasted pork.
Yeah.
Never has tasted bacon.
Doesn't even come in his mind.
That didn't come in his mind. But I mean, think about that instead of us thinking about what it used to taste like and how we miss it and so on and so forth or whatever. What about the guys never,
never experienced it.
Think about that. Well, okay, you have to go beyond your thoughts here.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay on track.
I think that's Good luck with that one.
I was in Tel Aviv with my wife and I went to the restaurant. And I told the waitress, because it was a Chinese restaurant in Tel Aviv, and young lady, and we mentioned to her, because it's on the menu, right? I said, we don't eat pork or shellfish. And I didn't hear this, but my wife, she went back with some of the other people that work at the restaurant, and she says, we're Americans, okay? We don't eat pork or shellfish. We're there, And she says to her friends, our generation is so messed up.
Who said that?
The gal that was waiting on us in Tel Aviv at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I guess it's in perspective, and maybe some people, you can change and get out of your ways. You can drift in the wrong direction. But at some point in time, if you start reading the scripture, you've got to come back.
Well, I think
you've got to want to.
I think we can train with God's help and with the help of Scripture what's acceptable and what's not. Because even though in Hebrew, hashav, which I've translated think and thought, it can mean to plan or devise, which indicates a thought is not a fleeting something that shoots by like, like a temptation that just hits you, it's gone. It's more of a thinking, like you would meditate on it almost. It meditates a little bit more than what I mean to imply.
Well, a coveting would usually imply
that
it's something that you would like to put into action. If there's some reason at the time you won't.
Well, the word in Hebrew means a desire. Like you desire something, which is deeper
that's not like I really want a cup of coffee. That's a very strong desire. There's a big difference between, I'd really like a cup of coffee.
Right.
It's apples and oranges.
Where do our thoughts originate from?
That's too deep for me, Dave. You got me there.
We have thoughts, correct? Everybody should have thoughts.
Ooh, I know where you're going.
Let me think about that.
Yeah, okay.
I do recall.
Not a trick question.
Where do you think they come from?
Yeah.
Well, I really think that there could be multiple places. I mean, we have have our inward thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We have thoughts that originate from our own
Yeah.
experiences and so forth.
And we could have thoughts we don't know.
Apparently, God can give us thoughts.
Okay.
You know,
No,
Yeah.
that's in the scriptures.
is it?
Yes, where he, on a couple of occasions, and it was like Pharaoh.
Uh-huh.
He hardened his heart, or he softened his heart.
That's
He
right.
did things. He put things in the mind of rulers.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying
I think there's one
that's exclusive to rulers. He could do that to
Yeah.
anybody.
He turns the hearts of
Yeah.
kings or men.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's in there. So we have these thoughts. They come from multiple areas, so to speak.
Can I put a thought in your head?
You sure can.
And you can
Sure
put one in mine too.
Yeah.
Now you can't do it without. I don't think you can. I don't think your thoughts can influence my. I don't know about the.
But they
The
can in
ESP
some, maybe
type
not mine
side
and
of it.
yours, but there are someone you can
Put your hands together.
you can influence somebody,
It
right?
depends on how you view a person. If you view them as an authoritative person in the know, then yes, a suggestion from them, a thought from them can influence you to do something.
Yeah.
We've seen that all
Oh yeah.
It's
all
something
over the
I-
world.
Cult leaders, politicians, movie stars,
Yeah.
people of influence can
Yeah.
influence others. That's why I think it's important to associate with. Now, look, if you're in the workplace and you work around people and you know they're just crude and whatever, you can. I've seen, and that's why we talk about peer pressure. Sometimes people are sort of influenced to do things that they know isn't really right.
Right.
And I think that it's the power of persuasion. But I think it becomes more incumbent on us to really, really seek to think about and meditate on things that are holy and pure, and to do our best to associate with people who think like that, you know? I mean, it really helps.
You know, an example. I was thinking of some examples, and Saul came to mind, and evidently he kind of went insane over some thoughts. He had thoughts of David taking over and
Oh, yeah.
doing this, and it drove him crazy.
Yeah.
Evidently. I mean, according to the Torah, it
Yeah, he went
pretty
nuts.
much went crazy.
Yeah.
He had to have a musician to kind of calm his thoughts down.
Which was David.
yeah,
Yeah.
which was David. You know, so so thoughts are important. I don't think it's a weak subject matter at all. I think
Share-
it's a very important subject. Yeah.
Sherry asked, "What about words spoken to others that encourage or discourage?" You know, it's that
But just
same.
words in general.
Joanne says words are life or death. So are thoughts. It's like,
Either or.
have you ever seen these commercials or whatever where a parent or an adult talks to a child in a very hateful way and you're worthless. Where did you get that? You're, whatever. You're planting thoughts within that person, I think. And I think that's really, really bad. I think we ought to look, and I'm not saying we have to walk around, blowing smoke on people all day, but at the same time, what if we did seek to help people think better about humanity and, by doing good? I think that it's sort of contagious almost, good and good thoughts, and all these things go together, I believe.
Well, we should be thinking about, those that are less fortunate than us will always be with us. But that doesn't absolve us. I mean, it's once that's said, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do about it? I mean, they're here. But it doesn't absolve us from trying to ease the pain and suffering of those that are on misfortune.
Yeah.
We do still have that responsibility. And I was debating on whether to say this or not. The other day, a very close personal friend of mine realized that their wallet was missing. And in reflection, believed that somebody had picked it up that was a miscreant soul. And found out that person had, taken the wallet and thrown it into a mailbox. Could have thrown it in a trash can. The money was gone, but the wallet and everything in it was still there. So it's easy to say in your thought, well, we need to find a way to get that person in jail or in prison and blah, blah, blah. the first thought that I had was, well, maybe that person isn't that, and I know it's probably people wouldn't agree with me on this, but that person may not be that far gone if they had some remnant of decency left in them to put that in a mailbox so that it would find its, and the postal person did contact that person to come get their wallet. Did they steal? Yes, they did. And I was hoping myself, and maybe this isn't the way it should be, but I think it is that my thought was I hope that God found a way to touch them to bring them back from where they were.
Yeah.
If there was it looked like there was some glimmer of hope when they took that other action. And so it's not, I don't think it's, and I'm not saying that to say, oh, I'm all this good guy, because I have bad thoughts about people too.
Uh-huh.
But if we can start thinking about people sometimes in that light,
Yeah.
then maybe there's hope. If we're not always down on each other, sometimes people just need, I don't know, we need to pray, we need to pray for them that God will put a hand on them.
Yeah.
Because if that
Well,
changes...
now David prayed that God would put a hand on their neck sometimes,
Well,
but you're not saying that.
No, there are people that probably that should happen to that are, doing bad things to others.
If I didn't make this clear, I didn't intend to come across as preaching that, look, I'm already here, you guys need to catch up.
No.
It's more of a question that can we as a race, human race, can we become in such a way, can we harness our thoughts in such a way and encourage others to do the same, that we literally turn this ship, is what I'm asking. Or are we created in such a way that it is inevitable that we have bad thoughts which lead to bad actions? So I think what I really want to get across is, I believe that sin, the manifestation of bad and contrary action against God's ways, does truly begin in the heart of man. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, how do I plant good things in my heart? Isaiah 51 talks about those who chase righteousness and seek God, those who have the Torah written on their heart, verse 7. Can we begin that process? You know, Deuteronomy 10 and Deuteronomy 30 both mention circumcision of heart. In one it says to circumcise your own heart, and another it says God's going to do it. Mm-hmm. I guess my point is, shall we not begin the process of washing our own heart as best we know how, and then call out to God to do the other part of it that we can't? You know, like, it's like, you ever bathe a child? I have 6 kids, 7 grandkids. You know, sometimes you want them to take a bath, and you send them in there, and, you know, typically you'll say things like, I want you to get in the tub.
Right.
I want you to sit, wait. Take your clothes off. Get in the tub. Get totally in, you know, wash everything. Wash behind do your face before your buttocks, you know. All those little rules about bathing. But you want them to clean themselves fully.
You were about to say something.
But at times you run in there and you have to do the cleaning for them, see. So I think it's both. I think in a way God wants us to begin that cleansing, but He's going to help, you know. So we need both. You know, there are places that we don't see, which is why David says, search me. You know, is there anything wrong? Is there anything off?
Well, it depends on who you are, too, because Rachel said that. Search me. To her dad.
Right.
For the idols. Remember that?
Yeah.
But back to your original question, if you can remember what that was, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And that... Dave's going, what was that original?
It depends. You've said a lot.
Well, the one you started out with just a little while ago are bad thoughts inherently with us, and, you know, evil, or are we going this way? And the answer is yes. It goes both ways. Right. What's the difference between having thoughts that lead to evil deeds or that violate the Torah, and learning to get rid of those. And washing doesn't happen all at once. You gotta. It's a process of cleaning. It takes time.
Yep.
But you're either going this way. How many times have we heard this? Or you're going that way.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Well, that's
and so,
kind of where
what's the difference? You got
question.
to want to. Yeah. So, to go that way, if you're over here in the I've got these thoughts and I don't know what to do, you've got to want to change that.
Yeah.
I got you.
It just isn't going to happen. God's not going to say, you know what? I know you ain't got it going for you. I'm going to do it for you.
I think I understand
Ain't
what you're
gonna
saying there, and I do agree. And of course, when a person says it, the next word out of their mouth usually "but." But I tend to look at it like the middle road. The balance is the right road to take. In other words, we have bad thoughts, and we have. I'm going to go ahead and say great thoughts or good thoughts.
Yeah.
They're on that side.
Good and bad.
Obviously, we need to lean towards the good thoughts. Obviously,
And we'll
Lean
still, even
away
though
from
we're
the
over
bad
here,
thoughts,
we're still going to get bad thoughts.
but
That's
I'm
how we deal
thinking-
with them.
I'm thinking the balance, the middle of the road there is to have our thoughts in the right I don't know, dynamics as far as like
How we deal with thoughts that come in that we shouldn't, we think are based upon our
it,
studies.
it has to do with it if our thoughts are continuously only on the good all the time, all the time. In other words, that's all we think about. Is just not having bad thoughts, just having religious good thoughts.
You'd have to be that guy on the mountaintop.
I think you're gonna have a problem. Yeah, I think you're
I
gonna
don't
have
think
a
it's
problem
possible.
because you're not using you're not worth a whole lot in life.
I agree.
It's hard. It's hard.
No, I
I
understand
get
what you're
myself in
saying.
trouble by saying that.
I understand what you're
Not
saying.
that it's gonna
But
mind.
it goes back to what you were saying. The only way to do this, to be, totally, I only think good thoughts, to be
It's a
sitting on that.
struggle. It's a
Well, to be
struggle.
sitting on that mountaintop out in the middle of nowhere. But that's not what God wants. He wants us down in the
right.
middle of everything.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
And so you're going to
I've
get
had-
bad thoughts.
I've had experiences.
You're gonna
with
have bad
people.
things.
We were talking while we were eating a little earlier about driving. We've talked a little bit about that now. Or let's say piloting an aircraft. You're the pilot of an aircraft. What should your mind be on while you're piloting that aircraft full of people?
Flying.
Flying.
Forget the other people. You're in there too.
No
you know?
matter what happens, your thought is ultimately on flying this airplane.
That's right.
Okay. Now, what if all of a sudden you just start daydreaming and you start thinking about God and religion and church last week and so forth, and you hit a bird? I don't know. I'm just saying.
I understand what you're saying.
But that could get me in trouble, those thoughts.
But
But some people would argue that if you keep your mind on God, then you will be a good pilot.
Well, there's different levels of that. In other words, when you're doing something that's nuts and bolts, or like planting, a field, or building a ship, or flying an airplane, you're doing a job, and so you're concentrating on that. So you don't think about anything other than
I
that.
had a buddy when I was in the Navy, when I was young, and he was an alcoholic at that young age, 20-ish. Really bad, serious. Didn't drink on the job, but he didn't need to because he,
I
you know
got
what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're
Anyway,
saying.
this guy was an awesome X-ray technician. He could shoot the X-rays. I was in dental, and in that particular job, I struggled with that because I was thinking too much about how to put this stuff in a certain way and get all the settings right, and my stuff didn't come out that good. This guy just push a button, it's done.
He had a talent.
I don't know.
Well, he had effectively built
know.
a skill.
So
But either way, he was doing it right.
I don't know. So that's kind of. I'm bringing this into the subject matter because my thoughts were obviously. I thought I had good thoughts and I was trying to do the right thing, and this guy was just outperforming him, and he obviously didn't have the good thoughts. So I don't know. What we do?
If he did have good thoughts, it was only at work.
Maybe that was it. Maybe he had it.
His personal life was a wreck,
He was just good at it. I mean, this guy. Anyway. I'll digress from that.
Well,
It's a tough subject.
it is a tough subject.
is. This
Betty
And
brought
it's
up
basic stuff.
Betty brought up a passage from Proverbs 23, and I didn't include it in my class because I looked it up, and what drew me to the text first was the English translation in my head. In Proverbs 23:7, I think the King James says something like, "For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he."
So he will be.
All right, so that's a beautiful thought, and King James is poetic, and it's got all this, and so the idea is that, if you think you're a good guy, you're a good guy. If you think you're going to win the race, you're going to win the race. It's about it. People use this text, Proverb 23:7, as a motivational thing. If you think it, you can achieve it. And so I thought, well, that's a perfect verse, and I wrote it down in my notes. What I'll do a lot of times when I'm preparing my class, you guys have seen me up here, I'll just, off the top of my head, I'll think about different verses that fit that subject, and then I'll go look and I'll dig deeper and deeper. And so that was one of the verses I initially put down on paper. In the ESV, it says, Proverbs 23:7, "For he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you." All right? Let's look at the King James. I'm just going to read a couple of them.
Okay.
King James says, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee." So people just take part A of that verse. "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." Let's look at the JPS. Just give a couple of them. JPS says, "He is like one keeping accounts. Eat and drink, he says to you, but he does not really mean it." You see all the differences? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in Hebrew, when I looked at it, and some of the language, some of the Hebrew in the Psalms a little bit more difficult, but it says, "Ki kamosha'ar benafsho kinhu," because as the word sha'ar means a gate. So what this is talking about is sort of a check system for the soul. In other words, it's almost like a gate. It's a gate. It's a check. That's where they get this idea of taking account or, checking what comes and goes. But it doesn't quite read the way the English translations do. But I do think that somehow it's indicative that there is a check system, sort of a gate. What you let certain things in, you don't let certain things in. But it's, how many times in Scripture does it say to guard your soul, your being, your nephesh? And I think we should guard our soul. There are certain things, if you let certain things in, look, I tell people all the time, I am where I am because I was brought up with these principles. Sure. My mom taught me these things from the time I was little bitty. The idea is that if you let certain things in, and this is a good rule, there's things that to this day I don't really watch, because I don't want to let that junk in. And I think a lot of parents are the same way with their own children. But I think even as adults, we ought to think like that. There are some things that I just don't want inside of me, I'm talking about things you might, entertain in your spare time. So this brings us to that point. If there is this check system for our innermost being, and we can let certain things in or not, I think what Torah is teaching us and Scripture is teaching us is let the good in, think about the good, focus on the good, don't let the bad in. It's couching at the door.
That's part of the whole idea of the doctrine or the theology, whatever how you want to say it, of free will. We have free will. We can think what we want.
Yeah.
We really can. Mm-hmm. Our brain can, our mind, our thoughts can go way, out of here and in here. So what you're saying is guard that and have the gate. And I'm also coming across that scripture about your tongue being a weaker vessel, so to speak. think before you speak.
Yeah.
Or speak your mind. Those kind of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? We have this thought. It's not a good thought. We have a thought. Should we say it or not? I'm not coming across.
I'm waiting. I'm letting you work it out.
It's like we have a thought. It's a bad thought. That's bad, but then when we speak, when we use our tongue to have that thought come out, that's even worse. I mean, it's more of a sin.
You can definitely make it worse by you sharing everything you think.
But I'm talking, sitting in the eyes of God. We have a bad thought. That's bad. God knows our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then when we speak it, and then
or act on it,
so we speak it, and somebody else hears it, and it gets in their mind, and they speak on it. I don't know what.
Yeah,
I don't know what the thought is. But it could be something as crazy as eating too much of this or eating too much of that. Or something.
Well, we ought to shut it down wherever we can. So it's like if you have this bad thought, and I don't want anybody to go, well, God knows my thoughts. I thought about it. I might as well do it. I'm going to be. That's not what we're saying. Yeah. We're saying, you could have a bad thought. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. If you have this the point is, you shut it down wherever you can, as quickly as you can. But I guess what I'm getting at is, can we circumvent that problem? Not today, maybe not tomorrow.
Not
maybe
even having a bad thought to begin with.
Maybe we can get to the place in our walk. Maybe some are further along than I am, where we can get to the place where we can say, you know what? I really try to think of good and positive and sweet and holy and I just don't entertain those things.
And anytime a bad thought even gets in my mind, I cast it out.
But to Dave's benefit.
So therefore you have less bad ones, and then we get to a point where we're perfect.
Maybe.
No, I don't think so, because we're alive here on planet Earth dealing with all kinds of manner of people in this planet. And Lord knows there's many, many people on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see bad things. We're going to hear bad things. Sure. We're going to have bad thoughts.
Would you agree, though, that there are places where you would see them more likely than in others?
I mean, like out on the street or on television?
Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, you're liable to see it anywhere.
Right. Let's say that you had two choices, and this is just us discussing. Sure. You had two choices. You said, man, I got an hour. What am I going to do with this hour? I could name your favorite Hulu show. I don't know. I don't know what you call it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Let's watch my favorite series, or let me read the 12 Minor Prophets, as they're called. Which would be more likely to be a good investment in the kingdom of God? Now, I know people are like, oh my God, man, this guy won't even let me watch TV. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, there are ways that we can condition ourselves and train ourselves. My brother-in-law is 58, 57, Jeff. He's a world champion bodybuilder and power lifter, and you know what? He is totally committed to this. I'm not that committed. I'll exercise. I stay in good shape, but it doesn't. It doesn't consume me like it consumes him. But you know what? If I have questions, I'll say, "Hey, man, look, I got this right here in my elbow." He'll say, "Let me see." Oh, well, studies say that this is. That's his thing. He thinks about it all the time.
I think that's the beauty of life. It really is. Having different people. Because my mind's already thinking about artists, people that are innovative. They come up with ideas that you were talking about Einstein earlier. I mean, these guys, in other words, we can't paint a picture here of everybody's brain and thoughts being the same.
Right, that's right.
We're all different. We all have our own original thoughts and so on and so forth. I think what you're saying is basically is overall in general, no matter where you're at, no matter what your kind of thoughts are, and I'll go back to your example, if you have an hour to kill, it'd be probably better to study scripture or something in that range. is what you're
Or to a point that you've made to me many times, it may not be sitting down reading. Maybe you say, I've got an hour.
thinking.
John told me the other day he wants to invest more time and energy into the food bank
Okay.
because of a situation that he encountered. You know, it's not all about reading the book. Let me just say, it's about things like that. That's an excellent example where John looked at the life around him and what he's doing. And I mean, we had a lot of private conversation I'm not bringing up. But he noticed a situation, or he became aware of a situation about a certain person who was in need. And he came to me and I said, man, you know what? I have some things too. Maybe we could... And it's what I'm bringing up is, what if we collectively found more ways, and again, I want to emphasize, it's not just about reading a book. I made that comment just...
But it's based on that book.
It is.
Because if you read that book, you're gonna see things in life and want to make those decisions.
Right.
Or not.
Yeah.
And then it's
Or
just
not.
a matter
Yep.
of doing what you're talking about there is having the skills to share it with people,
Yeah.
like-minded people, and actually get something done as a corporate, you know.
Right.
That's important too. I mean, we can have these thoughts. I can have these great, perfect thoughts, and if I can't communicate it,
Yeah.
which obviously I have problems with.
No, no, you don't.
But
We
I'm-
understand you
but I'm-
perfectly.
But I'm just, my point is, if you have problems, or if you don't communicate, you keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's not good, you know. So
Well, it's like,
crazy.
you know, when you get together with like-minded people,
Yeah.
which hopefully it's the right like-minded people and not the wrong.
Kind of like a team,
like
a
a
baseball
team.
or something. You know?
And if you recall, we've got some of this technology because we sat down and we talked about how do we improve it.
Right.
You know, and like when I had that experience and I talked to Ross, you know, it may lead to something like we put a box here in the UI center and people bring canned goods in and drop them off, and Ross or I take it over and give it to the food bank
Yeah.
periodically. Stuff like that will make a difference. That does help.
Timothy makes a point, and I've taught this many times. It's that man is a soul, doesn't have a soul. You know, we've taught that many times. But the idea is that nephesh is really a difficult word to translate, right? So we do find many passages that talks about his nephesh. But what does that really mean? So it's really in that Proverbs 23 point. I guess that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Proverbs 23:7. It's sort of that you're checking what comes in and out of your being, you know, because it could really mean your life force or your being or whatever. But anyway, that's a point that's worth mentioning. Thanks, Timothy. But Dave, to your point, we're all unique.
Mm-hmm.
We're all unique, but in some ways,
We're in the
maybe
same
we're
boat.
not as unique as we think. We are unique. Each of
Well,
us has our own
What's life without a little
flaws.
spice, you know, without a little salt?
Yeah, so the rabbis have this idea that they expound on in their thinking about Scripture, that all of us, everyone, have two components. What they call yetzer. Remember, I used that word today, the formation. When God forms man, the word is yetzer. He forms man. And so what they say is that man has a yetzer ra and a yetzer tov, a good inclination and a bad inclination. You've got both potentials. How many, think of, if I say, who are some of the greatest people that ever lived? Great meaning good. And you could think, you might say Mother Teresa, you might think, someone who's done a lot of good, Albert Einstein, I don't know.
But in the back of your mind, you're going, and I'm right there with him. No.
Yeah, yeah. Or you could say, if somebody said, who are the most wicked people there, and you could name people who did bad things. But each of us, I believe, has the potential to do incredibly good things or very, very bad things. And none of us should ever think that we're above doing bad, nor should we ever think that we're only doing good, because chances are we're a mixture. Mm-hmm. The goal, I think, for us is to live our life in such a way that we are exhibiting the good. And we're living the good. We're looking for ways to do the good. We're finding opportunities to do good for those around us. Now, how far do we take that? That's probably what I'm talking about next week, because it's really in my thoughts right now, is this idea of, so where do we go from here? But I do want people to think about, if you're checking your life, what comes in, what comes out. We can hang around people. You ever get around somebody who's so negative that they just they drag you down?
I got to get away from them.
Yeah.
I just can't.
You know why? That stuff starts coming on you. I mean, it's like, oh my God, man, this person. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who is really hurting. There are people who are really hurting, and they're just spilling their guts to you, and you ought to listen to that.
Those people that do Facebook regularly, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's people in there that's constantly, whether that's the way they are in real life or not.
It probably is.
It probably is, but I mean, their posts are just continuously negative.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and there are people who they like you mentioned a while ago. It's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I might have a bad thought, but I'm probably not going to post it on Facebook. Right. I'm probably going to go, I'm going to need your help with this one, because I can't get it out of my head. This guy's driving me nuts. I don't look and look. I'm not saying that
some are better than others on there.
Yeah, but like David, a lot of times he would, his last words. You remember David's last words to his son? Look, I'm about to die. I need you to get this guy and take him out. I need you to, so look, we have these things, and I'm not being critical. I'm just suggesting. Mm-hmm. But we, I believe, can help ourselves and help ourselves to help others if we associate with people who aren't so negative and nasty and mean and hateful. And you know what? We might influence people if we're not that way. A soft answer turns away wrath. You know how hard that is? That's pretty hard, because if somebody, ridicules you or whatever, you're natural, you want to jump back on them. But, what if you could turn that around? The Bible says you heap coals on their head, which is kind of fun anyway. So even if you got to fake it till you make it, I think sometimes if we're nice, even when someone's not nice to us, I mean, this is like stuff you tell people in kindergarten.
That's hard, though.
I always told my kids, and I tell my grandkids, if they're griping about this person's mean or whatever, sometimes I'll say, well, you never know. Maybe his mama and daddy don't treat him right. Maybe he just needs a friend. Maybe you can be nice to him, because sometimes I think there are roots of bitterness like loneliness and mistreatment. Children today, and since the beginning of time, I think children have been the victims of so many harsh and nice things. It's caused a lot of problems. A lot of our criminals, a lot of our hardened, hateful people had a horrendous life. Now, that doesn't excuse their action, right? You still have to punish the offense. But what I'm trying to get behind all of that and catch it early, So what can we do? This is my question to people today and for the rest of forever is, how do we more align ourselves with God's ways and His goodness, even in our thoughts?
I think it's just the actual fact that we're talking about it, and you brought it up, it goes a long way to say I initially started having these same ideas several weeks ago in some of your teachings when you started talking about doing good and not doing good and so forth. And I think I even mentioned it to Sherry on the way home. I was like, our thoughts are really more important, because that's where it starts at. We have this thought, and then it ends up being a bad thing. But guarding your thoughts or just it had to do with Kesed. You know,
Yeah.
you're talking about, because I mean, you can fake liking somebody, and you can fake,
Yeah.
you know, to a point. You know,
Yeah.
you're probably gonna get found out, but you can fake it, but it's more important to have your heart right. I mean, if you have hatred in your heart, you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
You really got to.
Sometimes it hurts
Part
you
of-
more than it does
Part of
them.
that struggle
Right.
is dealing with that hatred in your heart towards another person. You know, you might have the idea of being of really just doing what's that term? Aggressive,
Passive aggressive.
passive aggressive thoughts and
Yeah.
ideas, and active aggressive. You know, we're kind of good at this active aggressive stuff. I know I got passive aggressive stuff. If somebody does me wrong, I just got to wait and see attitude on it a lot
Yeah.
of times. You know, that's really bad kissing. That's
Yeah.
that's having hatred in my heart already. I'm just waiting for time to tell out.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so
good things-
that's really the battle. I think that's what you're talking about as far as trying to get inside this stuff and have to get it to not be a problem later on. Nip it in the bud.
You,
ideas.
you
I think
know,
we're
you
trying to-
just nailed it. You know who knows Ross's problems more than anybody?
Bridget.
Well, right, Bridget. After Bridget, it's probably me.
Yeah.
That's a good
right.
point, though.
Yeah, yeah.
The people
You-
that
you
are the
don't know
closest to us, we tend to know. Like King David says, "My sins are more than the hairs of my head."
Right.
Now, someone who visited his court and saw him playing the harp and singing songs to Jehovah might say, boy, David, whoo, that's a holy man. Meanwhile, he's getting Uriah sent to the front lines and watching Bathsheba on the roof that day, remember? So we don't know. So it's impossible for us to judge somebody. We want to look to somebody and go, that person's really got it figured out. That John, he's really living a holy life, and we don't know. Or Ross or anybody. We really, so the way that this works, it's like a golf game. You're out to play better than you did the day before.
Right, you're playing against yourself.
You're playing against yourself. And
And
recognizing
you can cheat.
you can
Well,
cheat.
yeah, but you're
You
only cheating yourself.
You are ultimately only cheating yourself and God. But you know, that's the idea. It's like, look, if you get up, I was on the way the other day and I was listening on the radio, and I was driving, and on the radio this person said,
But I have cheated.
this person said, I started off the new year by saying my New Year's resolution was not to get mad in traffic.
Right.
And I lasted one day.
Right.
And so the person responded to him and said on this talk show, okay, so don't wait until January of 2020
Right.
to try it again. Just pick it up today. All right, so it's January whatever, and you failed. Okay, so you say, all right, I messed up. I'm going to get it right, and I'm
That's not failure if you realize it.
Yeah.
If you get mad at somebody cuts you off, and you instantly automatically get mad at them, and your brain automatically says, "Wait, I'm trying to fix that,"
yeah,
and then you try to fix it.
yeah.
That's good. That's not I failed.
You're in
See,
the
and
training.
And
You're
that's,
training.
that's the
You're
training. You're
training.
training yourself to
You do
say,
that
wait a
enough,
minute.
and
wait.
you won't care. Now, then you just got to start looking in the rearview mirror and see if you're making other people
People
mad.
Well, there's when you do those things inside
Yeah.
and they work their way out,
Yeah.
there's bad things and there's good things. Kindness can be as infectious as evil.
Absolutely.
So kindness can spread like a wildfire.
Sure.
And on the other end of the spectrum, sometime in the last couple of weeks, somebody brought up something about hate on Facebook. And I mentioned that, excuse me, hate is like fire. It consumes everything it touches,
Yeah,
including you.
yeah,
It's something to be avoided.
yeah.
So
That's good advice. Now let me throw one thing in I've been thinking about. When we talk about a subject like this, a lot of people would say this is unachievable. Let me give you an example from my real life where I learned a valuable lesson. You guys were both in the military too. I remember like it happened yesterday. I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I remember in July of 1985, my first morning that I woke up in the barracks.
Oh, yeah.
I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, I could tell you where my bunk was, how many far in it was. I can picture it like it happened yesterday.
And what I had for breakfast.
And look,
Diet
listen,
you stood on?
and I remember a drill sergeant coming in that building. This was my first encounter. And I remember this drill sergeant using a lot of colorful language, so I'll clean that part up. But the gist of his message was, you have 30 seconds to be dressed, your bunk made properly, and be outside in formation. Go. 30
first
seconds.
night?
First morning. Now, I remember thinking, I'm moving. I'm getting dressed. I'm trying to make my bed, you know, the way Mama taught me. I had to make my bed every morning of my life. I knew how to make a bed. Obviously, not the way they were looking for, but I remember the whole time I was thinking, there is no way we can do this in 30 minutes. Even if I can do it, he can't.
30 seconds.
There were 30 seconds. There were people who weren't even moving quickly enough. Or we didn't make it. Day 2, same thing. Day 3, you know what? By day 3, we were able to do it. Now, we had to change some things. I remember I didn't sleep on my bunk.
Right.
I slept on a concrete floor.
Mm-hmm.
I would pull my pillow out because I could get my pillow back in. I know this sounds stupid,
No, we did.
but you learn
You have your
how,
clothes ready to jump in them.
yeah, or you sleep with them, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take it.
Or and you had 7 sets of clothes, but you only wore 2 of them.
Yeah.
You kept the other 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I want people to think whenever we say, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way
You can train yourself.
that you can be trained.
You can be trained.
You can teach an old
Military.
dog new tricks.
Military is good about doing that.
And so I'm thankful, not only for other reasons in the military too. I love that I served, but I'm thankful for lessons that I learned that I can draw on, because that was impossible, I thought. So can we control our thoughts?
You can. You can't eliminate thoughts, but you can control and manage them. It just takes training and
I
work.
like that word, manage.
Manage and control. It's just like anything else. We can put a person on the moon. We can cut a trench across Central America. We can do just about anything we want to do if we put our minds to
They
it.
went to the moon.
I'm pretty sure.
Here we go. See, that's a good point.
But, you know, we can do it if we want to. You have to want to do it.
Yeah,
Old country saying, can't never could.
yeah.
Never could.
You got to have an attitude of you want it, and if you want it and use the guidance provided,
Yeah.
you can make it happen.
I'm going a little. I'm trying to go a little further than this.
Oh, further than
that's a good
this?
point. Yeah.
All
It's
right.
like, okay, so by training and management, we can pretty much get our thoughts in line. That's a fair word to use, in line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have to deal with other people in this world, and so we have to realize, maybe that's one of the problems, we have to realize that not everybody has that management, not everybody has that training.
That's right. They got a
And
test
so
game going on in their
We
head.
can obviously see some problems there.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah,
alcohol,
right.
drugs, you name it. You know, there's problems. They don't know how to drive or whatever. So we have to have compassion, correct?
Right.
And so is that something we have to learn? And I think it is. And we
Yeah.
have to manage it, and we have to be
And that's
trained.
painful too.
Compassion, I think that goes right into the teaching you did on Kesed,
Yeah.
is compassion.
We have to train ourselves to be compassionate. Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do. And our thoughts have to think, well, that person there obviously wasn't trained right.
Right.
Now, is it our job to train them? Is it our job to do everything? Or is it just our job to have compassion and understand that they're broke because they made poor decisions in life and they didn't plan ahead?
Dave, I'm broke. But look, no, but that's a good
Just
point.
saying, you know.
But you say, like, if we see somebody on the street, we never know And Facebook does people put up some pretty good memes. It's like, you never know the struggle someone else is going in. Be compassionate. You just don't know. When you were talking, I thought about, I wrote it down because I didn't know but Mike Tyson, the boxer, said one time, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. We leave out to go on our day. And we have, everything is set up to be beautiful, and birds are singing, and we've got coffee, and you just never know when something's gonna.
Yeah, but when
hit
Mike
you.
Tyson got punched in the face,
Yeah,
and I did some boxing when I was in the Navy,
yeah,
and when you get roughed up, when you're fighting another boxer, you better be able to fall back on that instinctive training that
Yeah.
you went in day after day after day, because that's what makes the
That's
difference. If
my
you,
point.
oh my goodness, you just lose it, it's over.
that's my point. Everybody has a plan until life punches them in the face. So, to your point, Dave, when you go out and you meet people that aren't perfect like us, I mean, in here, we're safe because there's 3 perfect guys sitting at a table. I mean, we
Almost.
got it. If
We're
we
that-
could just
we're that
stay
close.
here,
We don't even lock the doors. We're good.
if we could just stay in here, it'd be fine. But look, Dave and I are good friends. Dave's one of my closest friends in the world. We've been together for a long, long time. You're one of my closest friends. Dave and I got in the desert together, and we were ready to choke each other out after a couple of weeks. And we love each other. This carries over into relationships with our
He's
spouse.
locking the door at night.
Yeah, I just didn't want him around. I wanted to move. That desert wasn't big enough. But here's the deal. If you think about it, life throws hard things at us. And to your point, John, we have to be able to fall back on what is it that we know? Like, what do we really, really know that is right? Now, look, for you, for me, and our relationship with God, look, I have very dear people that I love and truly care for who know nothing of the Torah, who don't care about the Torah, who they don't eat according to the dietary. That doesn't mean I can't love them. It doesn't mean that I have to preach to them. It just simply means that we're in a different place. But I think it's important that when we encounter people, that we instinctively know, and people begin to know. Like if I go to a friend's house, let's say, and I don't really have friends outside of here, but let's say I had a friend and he invited me over and I went to his house and he cooked something I couldn't eat. I would quietly say, look, I don't want to offend you, but I don't eat that. Can I just have a salad or something? Most people go, yeah. I mean, but it's not like, I wouldn't say, and you, by the way, shouldn't. Are you familiar with the Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14? I mean, it may come to that conversation if they say, why don't you? But if we're less judgmental.
Since you asked.
Yeah, if we're less judgmental and we're more open, I think things go better. I really do.
Somebody did ask me, why don't you eat this or that? And I said, well, if you go to Deuteronomy 14, it'll pretty well explain it.
Yeah.
I kind of followed that.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's pretty easy reading.
And usually they go, what's a coney? What's a hoopie? But I do think that we shouldn't. You hear that wind?
Mm-hmm. Well, I went up there a while ago. The
Is it?
temperature's coming down. Yeah.
Good. Don't go too low.
This
please.
is Louisiana.
Yeah.
We got a lot of friends out there living in the swamp. Don't get it too cold.
Yeah, that's right. But I do think that our goal should be to live our lives in such a way that we're examples. And that has to be real, and that means it has to start on the inside. Remember in Isaiah 29, there are a group of people who draw near to God with their mouth, but their heart is far from me. Think about that. I don't want to be one of those. What the Psalms call you workers of iniquity. I don't want to be someone who somebody goes, man, that guy's a preacher, and somebody else goes, yeah, but don't trust him around your old lady. You ever hear? I mean, there are people that have this front that they put on You're not fooling God. I mean, so the reason that I based my class on something some person posted on Facebook, and people, you don't know who this is probably, so it was just something someone posted. But their ridiculing of what is understood to be a saying attributed to Jesus about adultery made me think, is that so out of the question, or is he right?
But what most people don't appreciate is that most of the time, the things that Jesus said were directly tied back to the scriptures.
Yeah.
So he didn't make it up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially in this case. I mean, it's now people could debate, and the rabbis debate. I mean, if you look at Hillel and Shammai, I mean, these two famous rabbis took different approaches. One was pretty harsh, one was more lenient, is kind of a real basic understanding. But they had different views. They had different views on a lot of things. Well, you know, I don't think.
I don't even know if they lived at the same time.
No, but I don't think they did. That's a good question, because one of the sayings that's in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, says, as long as an argument is for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, it's good. I'm paraphrasing. But if people just fight,
right. For the sake of fighting.
Yeah, and a lot of people do that. Look, this is why when somebody attacks on Facebook, I tell people, just scroll, baby, scroll. You don't have to engage, even though it's tempting. You know, there are people who write stuff on my wall that I think, you know, and I'll delete it if I don't want to see it because I don't like that.
Somebody's wrong on the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
It takes. You got to manage your time, and you got to train yourself not to respond.
You're talking about examples. There are two really wonderful examples. There's an example of what not to be like, and then there's an example of what to be like.
Yeah, and we have them all around us.
That's right.
Every day. Yeah, I think our thinking has to change, and it's here and here that's as important as here and here.
Right.
You know, it's got to go deeper.
And this topic is like the sensory touch point, if you will. I know this is the button that people push to say, oh, that's too hard.
Yeah.
Because it is hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's not easy to control your thoughts, control yourself, control your actions, all that good stuff.
That was my last question.
Based upon what to do. It's not hard. And so it's just so easy to say, well, I don't have to worry about that. Somebody took care of all that for me. I'm off the hook.
Right.
I don't have any responsibility there.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
My last question on my notes is what is easier as far as thoughts go? Good or bad? What is easier? Yeah, I guess more than a thought.
Come on, Dave. You've had good and bad thoughts, which they're all the same. I mean,
But what's easier to
more
deal with?
It's convenient to have them both, but the hard ones are probably the toughest ones to deal with.
As far as doing something, is it easier to do something good, or is it easier to do something bad? Is it easier just to?
I think it depends on where you are in life, because doing that first thing that's good for somebody besides yourself may be the hardest step. That may be the hardest step. That first thing you do that serves you in no way whatsoever.
I guess that's kind of my thought there. You know, it's probably different for everybody, but if you've managed your thoughts and you were trained through your thoughts, then you're obviously going to have good thoughts. So good is easier. It's just natural, you know. Or if you were trained or not managed, and you have continually bad thoughts, which is in the Torah, these guys had bad thoughts continuously, then it's probably easier to have bad thoughts. But
if you're an embezzler or a thief or somebody like that,
if you're in the middle of the road, if you're just a normal middle of the road person, your thoughts come into your mind.
Yeah.
Is it easier to deal with to stop good thoughts or bad thoughts? And I'm leaning towards it's easier to have the bad thoughts to deal with those. It's kind of a lazy way out.
It's a lazy way out, but a lot of people in that middle of the road, which they're
good
you got a choice. You need to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go one way or the other. Middle of the road, and I think there was this rabbi lived a long time ago that gave the example of you know, if you're not bearing fruit,
Yeah.
you're not worth much.
Right.
And so you need to sort of work toward being on that bearing fruit side. If you're neither one, you're just a waste of time.
Yeah.
You're not one way or the other. You're
Hot or cold. That's kind
Yeah.
of. We keep going back to that same teacher, huh?
He was a good teacher. Just
Well-
it just viewed a little incorrectly. That's all.
I think I do think it's interesting though that the more we, it's like, and I've only played golf a couple of times in my life, and I wasn't good at it. But you know why? Because I've only played a couple of times.
I played a bunch of times, Russ, and I'm not any good at
Well,
it.
You played it one time more than I have. Only done it once.
And I tell you, but if someone asked Tiger Woods, and see, this is what I know. He may not even play anymore. I don't know, but
He does.
does he? Yeah. But someone who has achieved great success, whether he does anymore or not, but over the history of his career, he has. To him, this almost comes natural. I mean, he probably spent a lot of time swinging clubs and hitting balls. He's probably done a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. He's been doing it since he was a little boy. He's good at it. Mm-hmm. Now, for me to walk up to him and say, I think you would improve your swing if
Stand a little
you're
to
hitting
the
that
left
wrong.
of your right
could you
foot. Yeah.
bring your left foot back.
Yeah,
a little?
yeah, there you
I mean,
go.
this is the way I see some of these people.
Club might take on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, right. But I see people on Facebook, and they're no better at golf than I am. Right. But they're now they've played twice, and they look at somebody on their first swing, and you know what they do? Yeah, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. You're wrong. You should do it this way. You should. They're doing this with their religious little bit of religious knowledge that puffs up, And quite frankly, it's a smoke in God's nose. It's really, it's not benefiting anyone. Whereas, if you see somebody like me, let's use golf, and I go out and I'm horrible, if someone who does know how to play say, "Oh, I see you're a golfer, huh? I've been playing a long time. You want to play around with me?" And I think we should be bringing people in and helping them without being condescending, without talking down to them, without trying to beat them over the head. I think it goes a lot further because, years ago, Dave hit me with something. We were talking about the commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. And Dave said, in order to do that, you got to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, and that's a pretty powerful thought. How do we do? Yeah, because if you hate yourself, I don't want you loving me like you love yourself. Because you hate yourself, I don't want you to hate me. But what if we think about ways to whatever would be hateful to me, I don't want to do to somebody else. What if we started internalizing those more difficult commandments? I think it would change.
Yeah, you got
the
that
world.
one that says, what was that saying? What would Jesus do? But by the same token, if you look at it from the Creator's perspective with Hasid, he would probably advise, if he was talking to you personally, to say, love everybody as I love you. Mm-hmm. Now, that's tough because that's incredible. Now, how do you do that? That's a tall thing to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
So whether you dislike yourself or not, if you try and work toward that goal, that's you can't help but improve your game.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that ought to be our goal. Our goal ought to be to live a life of good. And believe me, I'm not presenting some peacenik type where you never have confrontations. People that know me.
I think you're just making a
You
point
have to
of
defend it, just like when we were in the military. You have to defend the weak, the helpless, what's right against blind tyranny and aggression. Mm-hmm. That you can't let that go. It's in the scriptures. Yeah, it's in the scriptures.
In doing good.
And God said, you will have to fight this. I'm paraphrasing. You'll have to fight this evil from generation to generation.
Should always be there with you.
Look, I'm going to close down for me, but I wanted to bring this up. What I witness when I see someone picking on someone who's just in the faith, right? Someone picking on them, and they've only been doing this a couple of years. Yet 2 years ago, this person is doing what they're doing, and now they're all knowledgeable. That burns me up. But here's an example. I'm going to encourage people to read all of Ezekiel 34 today on your own, 34. But just listen to this. I'm going to look for a particular one. Verse 20. I'm trying to, I don't want to skip what I really want to cover, but I also don't want to read the whole chapter. As far as you, O my flock. Now he's talking to his people. Thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, I judge between one lamb and another, and the rams and the he-goats. Is it so small a thing to you that you've eaten up the good pasture, but must you also tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture lands? So in other words, you've got good grass, but now you're going to trample and make bad the other grass. And to have drunk of the clear waters, but you must also foul the residue with your feet. So like I've brought you to good waters, and you're going to walk in there with your dirty feet. See, this is what people are doing to other people. And as for my sheep, they eat that which you've trodden with your feet, and they drink that which you fouled with your feet. Therefore, thus says Adonai Jehovah to them, behold, I will judge between the fat cows and between the lean cows, because you've thrust with side and with shoulder and pushed all the weak ones with your horns till you've scattered them abroad. Therefore, I will save my flock, and there'll be no more prey, and I'll judge. And he goes on. It's almost like we need to be very cautious. God is waking up his people all over the world. And when they come, they don't know a lot, maybe. And you've got a little bit, you've had a little bit of clear water. Get your filthy feet out of the clear water. We need to think about, how can I help and not hurt? And if you can't help, at least don't hurt. We ought to really think about our thoughts and our actions and recognize that God's working on all of us from the inside out. Yeah, we can adopt certain, I can say a few Hebrew words, and you know what? That doesn't matter to God. There are people.
He speaks all languages.
Yeah, and there are people who are speaking Hebrew that are wicked as hell, actually. So just that doesn't fix anything. I can say, oh, I'm a vegetarian. So what? Hitler was a vegetarian. I can say, oh, I've done this good. There are a lot of bad people that are doing good things. The point is, how do we get the inside of each of ourselves right so that we can be a light to others? I think that's the goal and that's the message. So.
And to follow on what you said, what I saw on Facebook a long time ago, a rabbi said, and I don't remember what his name was, it is better to be kind than to be right.
Yeah.
So when new people come, it's better to be kind than to be right.
It's another way to say that same thing is, you can be right and not do right.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a place in there where you can think, well, I'm right. I have the, as Bob Dylan said, God on our side, and therefore we can beat other people. But the idea is, let's work on us. Let's focus on the inside. Clean the inside of the cup. I think that's the most important. So.
What was the captain's name on the generation, Star Wars, New Generation?
Kirk?
Next Generation?
Yeah. What was that guy?
Picard.
What was it?
Captain Picard.
Yeah, he said, make it so.
Make it so. Yeah, that was him.
Make it so.
He used to tell the guys when he had a good idea or whatever, make it so.
Make it so.
That's what you got to tell people. Just make this
Make it so. We got to work at it. We have a kingdom to bring, and it's our job. It is our job. It is the people of the kingdom's job to bring the kingdom.
It's going to get
plant
done.
the kingdom. Oh, it's going to get done.
Without you.
That's right.
I'm just the guy that washes the dishes. I don't know.
Hey, I hear you.
Are you washing them right?
That was a hint. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe I
I
was.
don't know. I don't know.
No, but we really appreciate people spending all this time with us, and
Yeah.
we love you. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Saturday. That's the plan.
Yep.
Shabbat shalom, Shavua tov.